You woke up tired again, not just physically, but something deeper, harder to name, like your mind never really shut off, like it kept running all night trying to solve things that still aren't solved. Maybe you've been holding everything together, trying to manage every outcome, every conversation, every possible mistake before it even happens. And on the outside, it might look like you're doing okay, but inside, there's this quiet pressure that never really leaves. It's exhausting. There's a kind of tiredness that sleep can't fix, the kind that comes from carrying responsibility that was never meant to sit on your shoulders in the first place. Maybe you've been thinking, if I just try a little harder, if I think it through one more time, maybe I can finally get ahead of this. But it never quite works that way, does it? Because the more you try to control everything, the more unstable everything feels. The tighter you grip, the more it seems like life slips through your hands anyway. And that's the part no one really tells you. Control feels like safety, but most of the time, it's just fear wearing a mask. Convinces you that if you let go, everything will fall apart. That if you stop trying to hold it all together, something will break, or worse, you will. So you keep holding on, even when it hurts, even when you're tired. But what if the exhaustion you feel isn't a sign that you need to try harder? What if it's actually a signal that you were never meant to carry this much in the first place? There's a quiet truth here. Trying harder isn't always the path to breakthrough. Sometimes, it's the very thing keeping you stuck. Because real peace doesn't come from managing everything perfectly. It comes from knowing what was never yours to manage at all, and having the courage to release it. And maybe, just maybe, the stability you've been chasing doesn't come from holding tighter, but from learning how to loosen your grip. Pause for a second, take a breath, and gently ask yourself this: what am I afraid would happen if I stop trying to control everything? You don't have to answer it out loud. Just notice what comes up, because that's where this journey begins. Not with more effort, but with honesty. And right here, in this moment, something is already starting to shift. It didn't start all at once. Somewhere along the way, you learned that it was safer to carry everything yourself. Safer to anticipate problems, to stay alert, to make sure nothing slipped through the cracks. So you adapted. You became the one who thinks ahead, the one who fixes, who holds, who prevents things from falling apart. And for a while, it even felt like strength. But now it just feels heavy, because not everything you're carrying actually belongs to you. Some of it comes from expectations, things people placed on you, directly or quietly. Unspoken pressure to be the responsible one, the strong one, the one who doesn't fall apart. Some of it comes from fear, the fear that if you don't handle it, no one will. The fear that if you let go, things will go wrong, and you'll have to live with the consequences. And some of it comes from something even deeper, a subtle belief you may have never said out loud, that it's all on me. But it was never meant to be. God never asked you to carry outcomes. He never asked you to control timing, fix every situation, or hold the weight of everything working out perfectly. That role isn't yours. And yet, without realizing it, you've been stepping into it, not because you're trying to replace God, but because you've been trying to protect yourself from uncertainty, from disappointment, from pain. It makes sense. Of course you would want to feel secure. Of course you would want to prevent things from going wrong. But carrying everything, hasn't actually given you peace, has it? It's just made you more tired, more tense, more disconnected from the calm you've been searching for. Because peace doesn't come from carrying more. It comes from carrying only what is truly yours and trusting God with what isn't. And here's the quiet shift. You don't have to earn relief. You don't have to prove that you've tried hard enough before you're allowed to let go. You're allowed to release it now, even if part of you feels unsure, even if part of you is still holding on. So just for this moment, notice what you've been carrying that was never actually assigned to you. The outcomes, the timelines, other people's choices, the pressure to make everything work. You don't have to solve it right now. Just see it, because awareness is the first doorway to freedom. And right here, you're already stepping closer to it. There's a different way to live, quieter, lighter, but also stronger in a way that doesn't come from force. A way of moving through life where you're still present, still responsible, but no longer gripping everything so tightly. It's what I call living with open hands. Not careless, not passive, just open. Because when your hands are clenched, they can only hold. They can't receive anything new. And maybe that's where you've been stuck. Holding on to outcomes, holding on to expectations, holding on to how things should go, and feeling the tension every time reality doesn't match the plan. It's a quiet resistance, and it drains you more than you realize. But open hands shift something. They say, I will show up, but I won't force. I will care, but I won't control. I will trust, even when I don't fully understand. This is where surrender begins to feel different. Not like giving up, but like making space. Because when you release your grip, you're not losing control. You're stepping into alignment. Alignment with God's timing, God's wisdom, God's ability to see what you can't. And there's a kind of peace that comes with that. A deeper peace. The kind that doesn't depend on everything going right, but comes from knowing you're no longer carrying it alone. Maybe you've been thinking, if I let go, nothing will happen. But what if the opposite is true? What if letting go is what allows things to finally move? What if this is where doors begin to open? Not because you forced them, but because you stopped blocking them with fear. Right now, gently notice your body, your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Are they tight? Just for a moment, soften them. Loosen your hands, even physically if you can. Let your fingers rest open. There's something powerful about that, because your body often holds what your heart is afraid to release. So as you open your hands, even slightly, let it be a quiet signal. I don't have to hold everything anymore. You're still here. You're still safe. And God is still present, right in this moment. This is the beginning of something new. Not striving, not forcing, just allowing. And in that space, peace starts to settle in. Some of what you're carrying is obvious. Deadlines, responsibilities, things you can name right away. But some of it is quieter, hidden beneath the surface, woven into your thoughts, your reactions, your need to keep everything just right. The kind of weight you've carried for so long. It almost feels normal now. And that's the part we gently uncover. Because you can't release what you haven't recognized. So let's slow this down. Not to fix anything, just to see it clearly. What outcome are you gripping the tightest right now? Not what you should say, not what sounds reasonable, but the real answer. Maybe it's a relationship, hoping it works out, fearing it won't, replaying conversations, wondering if you said the wrong thing. Maybe it's your future, trying to map it all out, needing clarity before you feel okay, feeling like if you don't figure it out soon, you'll fall behind. Or maybe it's something more internal, the pressure to be better, to not mess up again, to finally feel at peace, and frustration that you're not there yet. These are the hidden burdens, not just situations, but the emotional weight attached to them. The what-ifs, the "I have to get this right," the quiet fear of things not working out the way you hoped. And without noticing, you've been holding all of that in a tight grip. No wonder you're tired, because you're not just living your life, you're carrying the responsibility of making sure everything turns out okay. And that's too much for any one person to hold. So just for this moment, name it, gently, honestly. What is the one thing you feel like you can't let go of? You don't have to push it away. You don't have to solve it. Just acknowledge it, because this right here is the turning point. Awareness creates space, and in that space, something begins to loosen. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough to take the next step. And as you sit with it, remember this: you're not being asked to pretend it doesn't matter. You're simply being invited to stop carrying it alone. There's a gentle way to let go. Not all at once, not forcefully, but step by step. A way that doesn't overwhelm you, but actually brings your mind and body into a place of calm. Think of this as a quiet process, a rhythm you can return to anytime the weight starts building again. We'll call it release and rest. Step 1 is simple. Notice, not fix, not judge. Just notice what you're carrying. The tension in your chest, the thought that keeps repeating, the outcome you're trying to control. Awareness is where the shift begins, because once you see it clearly, you're no longer unconsciously trapped inside it. Step 2. Name it. Gently put words to it. God, I've been trying to control this. I've been holding on to this outcome. I'm afraid this won't work out. You're not being dramatic. You're being honest. And honesty opens the door for peace. Step 3. Release. Not by forcing yourself to stop caring, but by consciously handing it over. You can even imagine it, like placing that burden into God's hands. Not because it suddenly disappears, but because it no longer has to sit on your shoulders. And if it comes back again, that's okay. You just release it again. This isn't a one-time moment. It's a practice. Step 4. Receive. This part is often skipped. After letting go, you pause. You breathe. You allow something new to enter. Peace. Stillness. Even if it's just a small sense of relief. You don't have to chase it. Just make space for it. Because God's presence doesn't rush in loudly. It settles in quietly. And finally, step 5. Rest. Not because everything is solved, but because you've stepped out of the role of trying to solve everything. This is where something shifts. You move from pressure into alignment, from striving into trust, from tension into a deeper kind of peace. And right here, I want you to do something small but powerful. Type this in the comments, or whisper it quietly to yourself. I release what I cannot control. I receive God's peace. Let that be your declaration. Not perfect, just real. Because every time you say it, you're reinforcing a new way of living. A way that creates space for breakthrough. For open doors you don't have to force. For a kind of favor that doesn't come from striving, but from surrender. You don't have to carry it all anymore. And maybe For the first time in a while, you're starting to feel that. Let's slow this down. Nothing to figure out. Nothing to perform. Just a quiet moment between you and God. If you can, gently open your hands again. Rest them softly. Let your body follow what your heart is learning. Take a slow breath in and exhale without rushing. Again, in and out. You're safe here. Now, in your own way, just begin. God,
I'm tired.
not polished, not perfect, just real. I've been carrying things I don't even know how to put down. I've been trying to control outcomes, trying to make everything work, and it's exhausting me. Stay there for a moment. You don't have to hurry. God, I bring this to you, and gently name it. That situation, that fear, that pressure sitting in your chest. I've been holding on to this so tightly because part of me is afraid of what happens if I let go. Breathe and continue. But right now, I choose to release it, even if your voice feels uncertain, even if part of you still wants to hold on. I place this in your hands, not because I don't care, but because I trust that you care more than I do. Let your shoulders drop a little. You don't have to carry it while you pray. God, I let go of the need to control how this turns out. I let go of the pressure to fix everything. I let go of trying to hold my life together on my own. Pause. Notice what's happening inside you. Maybe nothing dramatic. Maybe just a slight softening. That's enough. Now gently shift. God, I receive your peace, not because everything is resolved, but because you are here. I receive your calm in the middle of uncertainty. I receive your presence in the middle of what I don't understand. I receive the rest you've been offering me all along. Let that settle.
No rush.
And now a quiet declaration. Say it slowly. I trust you with what I cannot see. I trust you with what I cannot control. I trust you with what I've been afraid to release. Stay here for a breath or two. You don't have to pick the burden back up when this ends. You don't have to check if it's still there. For this moment, just rest, because something real is happening. Not loud, not forced, but deep. God is here, and you are not carrying this alone anymore. This is the part that matters most. Not just letting go, but staying free, because it's easy to release something in a quiet moment like this, and then slowly pick it back up the moment life starts moving again. Almost without noticing, you check your phone, you revisit the situation, and suddenly, the weight is back in your hands. That pattern is familiar, but it doesn't have to continue. Freedom isn't a one-time feeling. It's a new way of responding. A quiet awareness that says, I've already released this. I don't need to carry it again. Even if the situation hasn't changed yet. Even if the outcome is still uncertain. This is where trust becomes real. Not in the absence of problems, but in the presence of them. So when the thought comes back, and it will, you don't panic. You don't judge yourself. You simply notice, and gently you return, back to open hands, back to breath, back to truth. I've already given this to God. You might have to do that more than once. That's okay. This isn't failure. This is practice. And every time you choose not to pick the burden back up, you're strengthening something inside you, a deeper stability, not based on control, but on alignment. And here's what begins to shift. You start showing up differently, calmer, clearer, less reactive. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer trying to force everything into place. That's where real breakthrough begins. That's where favor finds space. That's where doors begin to open. Naturally, not through pressure. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this with you, not the burden, but the awareness. You are not responsible for holding everything together. You never were. And if you feel ready, one more small step. Type this or say it quietly. I walk forward in peace. I trust what God is doing. Let that be your anchor, something you return to when your mind starts reaching for control again. You're not the same as you were at the beginning of this. Something shifted, maybe subtle, maybe quiet, but real. And as you step into the rest of your day or your night, you don't have to rush. You don't have to figure everything out. You just move forward, lighter, calmer, and finally, at rest. Something feels different now. Not everything, but enough. Enough to notice a little more space in your chest, a little less pressure in your thoughts, a quiet sense that you don't have to rush back into carrying everything again. Stay here for a moment. Let this settle, because this is what renewal feels like. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a gentle return to peace. You didn't fix everything. You didn't solve every problem, but you did something more powerful. You stopped trying to be everything for everyone, and you allowed God to meet you in the middle of it. That matters, more than you think. Maybe part of you is still unsure, wondering if this calm will last, wondering if the weight will come back later. And it might, but now you know the way back, not through force, not through overthinking, but through surrender, through open hands, through quiet trust. So when tomorrow comes, or even later today, and the thoughts start again, you won't feel as lost inside them, because something in you will remember, I don't have to carry this. And even right now, God is still here, not distant, not waiting for you to get everything right, just present, steady, calm, holding what you've released, even when you forget. So take one more breath, slowly, let it out, and as you do, allow this final truth to land gently. You are allowed to rest, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer holding it all together on your own. If this moment brought you even a little peace, you can come back to it, again and again. And if you feel ready, a small, simple step, like this video, as a quiet decision to keep choosing peace, or join the surrender challenge. If you want to go deeper, one step at a time, no pressure, just an invitation. For now, rest, because something has already shifted, and you're not walking forward the same way anymore. Before you go, just one more moment, not to add anything new, but to gently hold on to what you've already felt here. Because this peace is not temporary. It's something you can return to, even in the middle of a busy day, even when things feel uncertain again. There will be moments where your mind starts racing, moments where you feel that old pressure creeping back in, telling you to take control again. And when that happens, don't fight it. Just remember, open your hands, take a breath, and come back to this truth. I don't have to carry this. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're learning a different way to live. A way rooted in peace, not pressure. In trust, not fear. And that shift, it changes everything. If this helped you, even a little, stay connected to this space. Subscribe to Miracle Prayer Room so you always have a place to return when life feels heavy again. And if you know someone who's been carrying too much in silence, share this with them. You never know who needs this kind of peace today. For now, just breathe. You've done enough, and you are finally allowed to rest. Just one last quiet moment before we close. No effort, no pressure, just receiving. May your mind begin to soften, even after this ends. May the thoughts that once felt overwhelming lose their urgency, little by little, as a deeper peace takes their place. May you feel a gentle covering over your heart, not heavy, not restrictive, but steady, like you don't have to brace yourself anymore. May you remember when the pressure tries to return, that you are not alone in holding your life together. God is already there, in the things you understand, and even more in the things you don't, working quietly, steadily. May open doors find you without striving. May favor meet you without force. May breakthrough come not from exhaustion, but from alignment. And tonight, or today, wherever you are, may you rest, not because everything is resolved, but because what matters most is already in God's hands. If your heart needs something simple to hold on to, let this stay with you. I am held. I am guided. I am at peace. That's enough. You don't need to carry anything else from here. Just this quieter mind, a lighter heart, and the quiet knowing that God is with you, always,